So my name is Joe Purslow. I am a health and safety consultant and I work for a large construction consultancy which is international called Faithful Gould. They are an international multidisciplinary construction consultancy offering services such as project management, building surveying, quantity surveying, health and safety risk management and principal design services. They work across various sectors including nuclear, aviation, also residential, infrastructure and also retail and education. What is the best part of my job? Now, I act in a role which is called Principal Designer, which is a role that comes under the Construction Design and Management Regulations 2015, which is health and safety legislation for construction. Now, in the role of Principal Designer, what you have to do is you have all your designers, so when you're building houses, for example, a leisure centre, whatever. What you have is obviously you have your architects, you have your M&E designers, and you have your structural engineers. Obviously, you do foundation designs and also so substructure as well as superstructure. Now, under CDM, so the CDM Regulations 2015, which I mentioned previously, they have to, when they're preparing a design, so they're designing their house, they're designing their foundations, they're doing the M&E design, they have to do what is called a design risk assessment, which basically when they put their design together, they have to consider how they're going to mitigate health and safety hazard and risk when considering construction, cleaning, maintenance and use as a workplace. So they'll put their design risk assessment together, they'll have all their significant risks listed down, and then also what they've done in the design to control any hazards and risks, and also make it safer for the construction team when they're putting the design together. So when they put their design risk assessment together, what happens then is I then get each design risk assessment, so for each discipline, I then look at each item, and what I'll do is I'll review each item. So as Principal Designer, I get all of these designers' design risk assessments. I look at the risk assessments, and I look at each control they've said and said, can we do more? Can we do this? Why are we not doing this? And add in, obviously doing health and safety, they do architecture. I'll have a lot more input in terms of how we can make it safer. So I'll say a load of health and safety controls. And then, what I'll do is I'll put that all onto a register, which then is effectively an Excel spreadsheet, which then coordinates each discipline's design risks all onto one spreadsheet. And then this information is needed because we need to demonstrate compliance with CDM. So how have we made it safer in terms of cleaning, maintenance, use as a workplace. Anything that we do at design stage will then be added to the specification. So when we do the specification, the final design, that will already incorporate the health and safety controls. However, when we look at the construction side of things, that information will need to be communicated to the construction team. So to give you an example, if you are putting together a leisure centre, what you'll do with your structural engineer is you will have them provide a method statement which basically says the sequence of construction. So the sequence of construction, that will say obviously the sequence of which you have to do it, any temporary cropping, bracing required, to obviously overall prevent it from collapsing while they're putting it together. So that's just one example. Also, another thing that you can incorporate in terms of health and safety design, looking at the structural construction side of things, is when you have, so you'll have your steel beams, you'll have what's called an I-beam, so your big steel beams that you're putting up. What you can do is you can incorporate what's called lifting points. Lifting points are basically steel eye bolts at either side of this I-beam, which then the construction team can then sling onto. So when they're lifting this beam, so you'll have your eye bolts either side, you'll have your beam there, when they can sling onto it. So when they're lifting this beam, they'll be able to maintain the centre of gravity of the beam and there won't be any issues. I've seen plenty of times on site, where eye bolts haven't been incorporated into the steel beam, so a slinger has slung around the centre of the beam. So when they're lifting it, basically, obviously, centre of gravity, physics, the beam will then obviously go tilt on its, tilt upright. So the only thing stopping this beam from sliding out, potentially hitting someone at ground level, is a strop base put around the middle of the eye beam. So we want to avoid that at design stage. You can have the eye bolts in there, so all they've got to do is clip onto the eye bolts, rather than obviously someone swinging around the middle of the beam, then lifting it, potentially it's sliding out because of how it's been slung. The best part of my job is steering that design process in terms of health and safety. So that's what I'll do. I imagine if I'm the bus driver, I've got all my designers in the back seat, and I'm steering the design in terms of health and safety and how we can improve the design in that respect. And the way what I do that as well is I'll look at all the design risk assessments, put them onto the register, and then I'll have all my review comments, and then I'll sit down with them in what's called a design team meeting. Normally have a projector, it'll be on the screen, and we'll just go through each point and just make sure we can close out each item or do as much as what we possibly can. The idea of it all is to not have any residual risk at the end of it, which has to be controlled. However, if there is anything that needs to be controlled, such as obviously, like I mentioned previously, a sequence of construction, and we'll get a method statement for that. So what would you say are the pain points within the AEC industry? What can be improved? So in my opinion, what could be improved is the transfer of design risk mitigation information to the construction team. So as I mentioned previously, I'll just hang on this example. When you've got your method statement from your structural engineer to put together a leisure centre, now how are you going to communicate that information? Now, what they sometimes do is they'll do a handwritten sketch, and at the end of it you've got your construction team there standing, and you've got this there. What they're looking at is a piece of paper from a structural engineer saying, put this here first, put that there first, and some of them even look like there's a bit of a spider web on a bit of paper. Now, what I've suggested in the past, which has been used, which is a very good use of technology, is what is called 3D modelling software, which is available. I'll just show you an example. So 3D modelling software, so the transfer of information from a structural engineer's method statement to put together a leisure centre to the construction team, rather than a handwritten sketch, what we can use is what's called 3D modelling software, and I hope you can see this. Basically what we have here is we'll have a 3D model on a computer, and what it will say, it'll have an image of a crane, it'll have all the components, so all the steel beams and whatnot, and then it'll just show you in a 3D model on a computer exactly how it's meant to be getting put together, so there is no uncertainty for the construction team. They can see exactly what's happening. It's already been done on a computer. You'll be able to do it fine. So 3D modelling software, really useful tool, should be used more, so that it just takes out any uncertainty of how we're going to be building this leisure centre, for example. Transferring information. What are the hardest aspects of my profession? Now, as a consultancy, you have a large number of construction projects that you have to look after. Me in particular, I have 80 projects, all at different stages of design and construction, which I'll have to look after. Obviously, I make my own calendar, sort of manage my own workload, and the way that I manage all of these 80 different projects and make sure I'm up to date with all the input that I'm required to do for the project is I have an Excel spreadsheet, all my list of projects down the side, and exactly what I've done on what day, when they start, when I've issued what document, and all that. But the hardest part is obviously trying to get around to all of these projects, making sure you're giving them as equal as attention as others, some obviously more than others because they're bigger jobs. But yeah, I'd say time management in that respect. So, would I agree that green and sustainable projects and practices